Okay, so it is just past 10, so I'm going to get going because I think we have a fairly substantial presentation for you today. Let's get started. Welcome to the SCORE Monmouth webinar series. My name's Claire. I am a SCORE mentor and I help run the webinar program here over at SCORE. Today we have with us Jeremy Skillings. He is the owner and founder of Google My Business. And you can be found. And today's topic is Google My Business and local search, etc. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to use the Q&A function for any questions. This is going to be sort of somewhat interactive. So if you have questions, please post them in the Q&A section. Try not to post them in the chat function because we don't monitor that as much and it's easier for us to manage in the Q&A function. We'll take them throughout the presentation, so just post them and we will get through them all and get your answers to you. This webinar you will find on our YouTube channel after the presentation today or within a couple of days. So don't worry if you miss anything or you want to go back and look at it, it will be on our YouTube channel. What else can I tell you? So SCORE, we're a national association. We are run by volunteers and we are a business mentoring service and we also offer free webinars. We are always looking for mentors. So if you know anyone or if you are somebody who might be interested in mentoring people and local businesses and helping small local businesses, please reach out to us. You can do that on our website, monmouth.score.org. And also if you are looking for mentoring or if you know somebody who's looking for business mentoring, we offer free services. So again, please feel free to look on our website or reach out through monmouth.score.org. On that note, I think I will hand over to Jeremy and let you get started. Thanks, Jeremy.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much. And I'm proud to be here. And I should do a little housekeeping up top as well. First of all, when I started my business years and years ago, SCORE was a tremendous help to get me going, because a lot of times you know the business you want to do, but you don't necessarily know all the other parts about running a business, the financial stuff and the marketing and all that kind of thing. And SCORE can jump in and help you with that stuff so you can get going and be great at what you do. So thanks from me to SCORE as well for all this information you provide for people. Another little bit of housekeeping. So as she mentioned, I'm going to stop every couple slides and handle some questions, but also at the end, I'll give you a link, and the PDF of this is also available to download. But with the presentation recorded, that's even better. So SCORE will offer that as well. But if you want the PDF, that'll be available for you as well. So with all that being said, let's dig right in and start with Google My Business and ranking and local search. What I want to give you today is some important information that you can use right away to help your business, and starting from the basic and then actual actionable things that you can do. One of the most important things to me, I've been doing this for 15 years, specializing in SEO and search. And one of the hardest things to manage is to understand what sort of the lies are from what really works. And today is designed to tell you what really works, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. I actually restructured this presentation significantly just a couple days ago because someone came to me with a proposal that someone had given them, and it was just totally false, the information they had been given. And that just always annoys me, because it gives search a bad name when people are spreading inaccurate information. So let's get you some accurate information. So right off of the top, I just want to explain the absolute very basics. So the most of this presentation is about Google My Business. And just so that everybody's clear and that we're all on the same page, I want you to understand what Google My Business is, or you may hear me or others call it GMB. It's just the acronym for Google My Business. So if you or one of your potential customers or clients is doing a search and Google deems it to be a local intent search, they're going to pop up a map like you're seeing here. The map is has changed over the years, but it's basically right now, we call it the 3-pack of top ranking businesses that Google thinks is the best result for your search. This representation of your business is what the Google My Business is that we refer to. So Google will create this representation of your business if they just see the data out there in the internet. So it's possible that your Google My Business exists even if you didn't create it. So we're going to get a little bit into all the different aspects and factors involved with Google My Business, but I just wanted to let everyone know right off the top what Google My Business is. And it's basically this pin on the map that represents your business and has a lot of information about your business. The important thing here is you want to own this and get control of it so that you can control how your business is displayed and not just let it be sort of displayed by the general population or what Google has found. So the first thing we want to tell you how to do is to actually claim your Google My Business page. So there are a couple ways you can do this. So if your business already exists and there's already a Google My Business page for your business, even if you didn't set it up, it's very possible. You will want to just go into Google and search the name of your business and the town that your business is located in, and it should pop up and you'll find it, and you'll see this this panel of your business shows up, and there's usually a link that says own this business. You click on that and it'll just walk you through the process of claiming your business on Google My Business. One thing to keep in mind for this that's pretty important for the long-term planning is the account you use to claim your business. I would set that aside and be organized and make sure you use that account for all of your business associations with Google. So you're going to find in today's world that there's often a lot of different ways that you're interacting with Google. And as your business, you want them to be able to talk to each other. So it's good to use the same account to claim your Google My Business. If you're doing Google Ads, you want to use that account for that, because then you can connect your business to your Google Ads. There are all sorts of different Google sort of entities and tools, Google Analytics, which shows your traffic. I would use the same account for all of those so that they can sort of more easily talk to each other and be organized. So I told you one way to claim the business, so that's one easy way to do it. The other way to do it, if you have a brand new business and Google's never found it and there's no sort of information out there at all for it, you can just go to business.google.com. And again, you'll want to make sure you're logging in. They'll make you sign in with an account, and then it'll walk you through a process. It'll ask you the name of your business, your address, and it'll take you through a process to eventually sort of prove that you own the business and claim it. So there's a few different ways that Google, and it sometimes depends on date and time and your industry. There are a few different ways Google will make you prove that you own the business. You can't just claim a business without sort of proving to them that you actually are the business owner. One is they will allow you to, they'll send you a PIN immediately, and then they'll call you and you type in the PIN and that'll prove it. Sometimes they'll send a postcard to your business address with a PIN on it, and then you come back and put it in. But they basically will explain that to you as you walk through the process. So that first and foremost, if nothing else you learned today, I want to make sure that you go out there, you create your Google My Business, because there's a lot that's associated with this. Even if you're not a local business owner, like you're not worried about people searching for you by geography, you're more of a national target. Having a Google My Business helps tell Google about your business and gives it more authority and trust in Google's mind as an algorithm. So you should definitely create one for your business. Just wanted to get that out of the way first. We're going to get into the weeds a little bit more on what you can do to help your business show up. But I'll stop here real quick if anyone has any questions on exactly what is a Google My Business page and claiming it.
So one of the questions is, if you have multiple Google accounts, right, and if your business is not hosted on Google, right, on G Suites or something like that, so maybe you have a Microsoft email address or a Office 365 email address, how does that work? How does that all interact? Or say you have multiple businesses, 2 or 3 businesses, or 2 or 3 URLs, can that all be managed in one place? You
can manage it in one place. Google will often make you have a Google account to do it. So you might not be able to use your Microsoft email account, but you can create an account. They've actually been kind of weird with that over time. So sometimes they'll allow that and sometimes they won't. But you can have multiple, like as an agency, I have management access to 100 or so Google My Business accounts. So you can have many in there. They're looked at as location entities. So for example, if you were a chain restaurant and you had 50 locations throughout New Jersey, you could have all 50 on that same account. And they would just show up as separate, different Google My Business entities. And if all the things I teach you here today, you'd have to do for each one of those 50. So it's a little bit more work to do. But yeah, you can control it with one.
You can have one account and then just
yeah. And I would recommend that if it's the same business, it's just easier to have it all in one spot than to create all sorts of different accounts.
And then there's one other question, which is I've used the PIN through mail to me card and set up my business through Google My Business. But when I just did the search, it's still coming up with owner of the business prompt. Why is it happening and what can I do about it?
Own this business is like this example here. I pulled this up Monday or Tuesday and I own my listing. It just always says that. So Google will put that on there anyway, and people can try to claim it, but then they'll get hit with that. They need the PIN, so they shouldn't be able to claim it away from you. So don't worry if it says that, as long as when you go into business.google.com, if you can go in there and control it and edit things, then you do have control of it. It's just, it is a little bit misleading to people because they see that and they think they don't own it. But if you can make edits to it, then that means you have control of it.
Excellent, thank you.
Yep. So if we're good on that, then we're going to move into the next little piece. And before I leave this slide, once you claim your business, there's all sorts of information you can add to it. And I always say, feed the Google beast. As much information as you can put on there is helpful. The more you interact with Google and give them information. One thing to keep in mind is Google is showing these Google My Business listings more and more. They're deeming more and more searches to be local based, and the way they find out about your business is what you're feeding them and what your customers are feeding them. So get as much information in there as possible. We'll get into that a little bit more, but be specific. List all of your products and services. Make sure you get your business category, all of that kind of information. And with that being said, we'll move on to just a quick look at. So what we're going to talk about here today is ranking factors for local and for Google My Business. And what happens is I get questions all the time. Is this a factor? Is this a factor? There's literally hundreds of factors for ranking in Google and in the Google My Business searches. The important thing is understanding which ones sort of move the needle the most and can help you move up in the rankings the most. Because something that moves at just a minuscule amount maybe is less worthy of your time than something that is going to make you jump up in the rankings. So what I want to do here today is go over some of the things that move the needle the most for you when it comes to ranking highly for local search, and sort of separate some of the stuff that isn't. So people may have questions because, like I said, just the other day I saw a proposal and they told this person the most important thing for ranking in local search was something that's totally inaccurate. So we're going to get into what does matter at a higher level, get into the weeds a little bit on a few of the more important things, and sort of go from there. But first, as with any SEO presentation, we have to talk about correlation and causation. So this is an example of two data points that look like they cause each other because they correlate highly. Per capita consumption of mozzarella cheese, civil engineering doctorates awarded. They have nothing to do with each other, but their data looks like it matches each other almost purely. So going into talking about SEO factors, I just want to point out that Google doesn't tell you what the SEO factors are or what percentage matter or anything like that. We get all of this from people in our industry, reputable people in our industry doing data projects and learning what works and what doesn't work. So all this information comes from correlation and us seeing that if we do certain things, it makes our rankings go up or down. And I just want people to understand that Google doesn't tell us this stuff, information. If someone calls you and tells you Google told them something, that they're not being honest with you. But all this stuff is proven over time from SEOs like myself that have actually done this stuff and seen it improve people's rankings. So let's talk at the highest level, and then I'm going to pause after this for questions again. But I'm just going to talk about what each one of these things are on the graph. And this is, again, a correlation study on sort of categories of what matters the most for ranking. And just quickly going through it. So GMB, as I mentioned before, stands for Google My Business. And that means all the information that you're putting on your Google My Business page. So the name of your business, the category, those types of things. Reviews, fairly straightforward, but reviews, you have native Google reviews where people leave reviews right on Google, and naturally Google would trust reviews on their system more than others, but they do see reviews that are placed elsewhere. So getting reviews anywhere can help you, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth later. On page is more about the page. So when you create your Google My Business, you're going to tell Google which page of your website you want to send people to if they click through. And Google looks at the content on that page as well to find out what's relevant and that type of thing for whether you're going to rank or not. So that's very important. It's not just your Google My Business, it's also your website that's connected to it. Links we'll get into in more detail later as well. They're very important. They've always been very important to SEO. Links just means other websites linking to your website or to your web page. It's viewed as, by Google, it's viewed as sort of like a virtual referral. And it gives more credibility, and it tells Google a little story about your business that someone else is willing to send their visitors to your website. These other three little slices here, behavioral is more about what people do when they interact with your Google My Business. So if Google is seeing in the data that people are spending a lot of time on your Google My Business versus one of your competitors, they're going to weigh that a little bit better. It shows them that they're interacting more, having more of an experience with you than someone else. Personalization, really quick, that's more personalized stuff to the specific searcher. So if you've already given a 1-star review to some business and then you go back and search best at that type of business, that kind of thing, they might not show that to you. Or if you regularly go to a business, they might show that a little bit higher ranking for you than they would for somebody else. And then lastly, the citations. This is one of those things, this is actually one of the things that came up Monday that had me change things. This used to be a big deal, and it's been decreasing more and more the importance over time as Google gets better at figuring things out. And citations just means, basically we called it the NAP, and it stands for name, address, and phone number of your business. And the more, in the past, the more times Google saw that that was consistent throughout the internet, the more they were confident that your business did exist at those locations at what you're saying. The problem is the industry, as often happens with SEO, is people abuse it, and oftentimes entire industries pop up to sort of cheat as something that Google has shown is important. And what happened is a lot of different services just started creating databases for citations that you weren't in, just to send you an email and tell you that you weren't in it and scare you into buying their services. So because of people abuse that so much, citations became much less important. And there are still important citations. I don't want to send you down the wrong street there. There are still important citations, but it's not about the number of them. It's right getting in the right 5 or 6 more than it is about getting hundreds and hundreds of them, because literally probably 80% of the citation sources out there these days are pointless. I know that was a lot all at once, and we're going to get into these a little bit more specifically on which ones move the needle the most. But I want to stop there really quick and see if anyone has questions on what any of these pie slices are.
There's no questions on the pie slices, but there was just if we could repeat, if my new business is not recognized by Google, what do I do to get Google to create the map and pin?
Sure. So, and here, let me go back real quick. So if you're not on there already, you'll want to go to business, and I actually have something covering it, the controls. If you see up the top, it's business.google.com. And if you go there, it'll walk you through the process. It'll ask you what the name of your business is, and that's to set it up brand new. And then you'll, again, it's just like when you click the Own This Business link and claim it, except you're claiming something brand new and they're publishing it for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then one other question was, are you going to talk about reviews and how those impact your Google My Business at some point in the? Most
definitely. Yep. It's coming up. That's a great segue. Although they're not next, but they're coming very soon. So here we go. We're going to get into.
Just one other quick question.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, it just popped in. So just seeing as we had citations in there. By citations, do you mean going to moz.com and adding local listings?
So Moz is one of the tools that provides local listings, and they'll get you in those core ones that I mentioned before. But there's a lot of, I don't want to talk bad about any particular service, but there's a lot of services out there that will tell you that you're not in like hundreds of places. Moz is actually a reputable source. So if that's where you're going, then you're okay. So you want to get in a few of these places, and Moz gets you in those places. So that's okay. But like there's a company called Yext that literally creates hundreds of listings so that you'll fail a test, and they'll tell you that you're not in them because they want you to buy their service. But yeah, Moz, that's a great question. That's good that you found Moz, because Moz is a good source of getting your data out there.
Great, thanks. Okay, thank you.
No problem. Okay, so now we're going to step into sort of some of those top 10 individual ranking factors for local. And this first page is more about what you don't necessarily have a whole lot of control over. So 3 of the biggest factors we have very little control over. One is, and I want to go over this because people make this error all the time, and you should at least go into it knowing the potential consequences. So keywords in the business title are a big ranking factor, but by rule and by what Google states as a rule, the name of your business when you set it up in Google should be what you would say when you answer the phone. So if I say you can be found when I answer the phone, that should be the name of my business. And a lot of people, because Google does tend to favor businesses with keywords in the name, people will cheat at it. And that's what this example is here. Katie West, Houston air conditioning contractor, AC installation, air conditioning installation, HVAC installation, Houston, Texas. I'm willing to bet that that's not what they say when they answer the phone. And they do that because a lot of times that will get them higher in the rankings because of that keyword. But the risk in that, it's great when you get an immediate boost in the rankings, but the risk when you do that is if Google does flag it and decide that you're breaking the rules, which you are, they can get rid of the whole Google My Business listing and get it suspended, and you just disappear. So you need to weigh whether it's worth breaking that rule or not to get a little bit of a boost in the rankings. And I would recommend not doing that and fighting on the other realms of competition that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I just wanted to point that out. The reason they give so much power to what's in the name is actually based on brand. So if someone is actually looking for SCORE, then obviously the name of the business SCORE should be weighed heavily in the algorithm to find SCORE. So differentiating something like that with a brand name versus keywords, Google still hasn't quite nailed that. But that's why it works, but that's also why people are constantly looking for people cheating at it so that it isn't taken advantage of. And the other 2 real quick things that matter for ranking that you don't have a lot of control of are both based on location. So the proximity of the address of your business to point of search. So if someone does a near me search, Google's going to find examples of businesses that are near that person, wherever they are. And then lastly, the physical address in the city of search. If you're in Asbury Park and you do an Asbury search for plumber Asbury Park, for example, a plumber that actually is in Asbury Park is going to have more weight than someone outside in Neptune or something like that. Now you can make up for that with some of these other factors, but you can't necessarily change your address. So those are the things you have less control over. I just wanted to go over them quickly because they do have weight in the ranking, but they're things that you don't necessarily have control over. So moving on to some of the things, these are basically the top of the list, the things that matter the most for ranking for local search. And I'm going to go through them sort of in little categories because a few of them group together well. And the first one is your GMB category. So when you set up your Google My Business page, it's going to ask you, and that's what this over here is with the laboratory and chemistry lab, it's going to ask you what your primary category is, and then it's going to give you the option to add other categories. And I just recommend people always try to find the thing that is closest related to what you do. In some businesses, it's easy, it pops right up and it's obvious, but sometimes there isn't necessarily a category that's exactly what you do. And if that's the case, you want to try to find something as close as possible to what you do. Now, if you are, for example, if you're a lawyer, there may be all sorts of different types of lawyer in there. So you have to kind of decide, because the one that you choose as your primary category is the one that you're going to get sort of the most bump for in the rankings. So give it some thought, and changing your primary category can change change things quite considerably, even if they're close, because suddenly your primary category is going to give you the highest ranking. And if you move something to secondary that was primary, you're probably going to drop in that area. But at the same time, if anything is relevant, don't sort of overdo it with things that aren't relevant, but anything that's relevant that is a category, add them as your categories, because what you're telling Google your business category is important to your ranking and making you relevant to those searches. And Google understands sort of similar searches that are around what your category is. So get as many of those in there that are relevant as you can, and always keep an eye on things. If you're one of those businesses that you're like, it's not quite right, the representation of what you're offering, keep an eye on it, because Google is constantly adding new categories. The world is always evolving, and types of businesses are changing. So come back if it doesn't have yours exactly, come back every month or two and just check and see if something new has been added. So that's going to move me into another slide, but I'm going to pause here real quick just in case. Claire, are there any questions so far? I don't want to get too far down the path.
No questions on that right now,
Okay.
but just, are you going to cover how to fit and add photos at any point? Somebody's having an issue with photos and sizing and putting them on their website.
I don't go into the details of that, but I can send you a page on, you definitely want to add as many photos as you can is one answer, but if you're having trouble, there is a spec page in Google support. If you Google specs for Google My Business photos, it should tell you how big they can be and that kind of thing, because there are rules on how big the file can be, and that may be the issue you're running into. It can be frustrating.
Great, thank you.
Yep. Okay. So now that we've done categories, we're gonna get into links, and links can be a little bit complicated. So I just wanna go over this a little bit. So as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, links from other websites to your website are sort of like votes of credibility in Google's eyes. They give your site authority, trust, expertise in certain areas. And every link that comes to your website is telling a little story. So there's a big difference in a link between, say, the Wall Street Journal, a national publication, and your local chamber of commerce or your local SCORE if you're a volunteer. But they both help. They both help in different ways. So you want to have both of those links. A local link is telling Google, especially if you're a local business, that you are active and relevant in that local area. So if you're a local business, it's really helpful to have a lot of local links. Things like, and these are all examples that I have here, if you're in a local BNI or LaTip or something like that, and they offer a link to your website, definitely take advantage of these things. The chambers, like I said, if you sponsor a Little League team or a local charity or your local Rotary, all those things. This is another thing. When we get off this presentation today, sit down and think of what are all the business relationships I have offline that could be links, because you could go and make sure that that is a link if you can, or ask for it. Sometimes it's not a given, but if you're a member of a chamber, that usually comes with a link to your website, and you'd be surprised how many I've sat down with and they never gave the link to the website to their chamber for their profile page. So these are all ways to tell Google that you're relevant and to build strength and ranking strength. And links, since links are actually the way that Google separated themselves as a search engine back when they first started. Years ago, search engines were basically sort of alphabetized lists. And Google said, how are we going to differentiate and give value to one listing over another? And links have been that for a very long time. So they're really important to this day. And the more you can think of that you can get naturally, as an SEO company, I help clients with my relationships to help get them more links, because it's important to constantly have links coming in. And the other piece of this, which was a little lower on the list of, whoops, go back to the list. So it says links to your domain, and then links to the landing page is lower on this list, but they're both very important. It's sort of like, I always blank on this phrase, but any link coming into your website as a whole is going to lift the whole website. But links to a specific page, they help that particular page even more. So links coming into the landing page, and when I say landing page, that's a page that people land on your website when they click through from your Google My Business. That's the biggest page that matters for your ranking for Google My Business. So you want to make sure that you have links coming into that page to strengthen that up as well. And a lot of people just use their homepage. that's a deeper dive into factors on which page to link to. Typically, you want to have the name, address, and phone of your business on the page that you're linking to. And sometimes in the past, people didn't always have that on their homepage. Nowadays, most people do. So a lot of times the homepage is the most relevant to link to. There are rare cases where it isn't, but keeping that in mind, you typically want to link to your homepage unless there's some specific reason that you would link to a different page. So that's a really, I was gonna say that's a really high level. Links are very complicated and could be their own presentation, but any questions on links?
Yeah, a couple of quick questions. So how do you request links from associations? What is is there a best practice for that?
That's one of the reasons it can be complicated, because every one of those why Google gives it value. They're all unique relationships and they're all humans that put the links in place. So a lot of organizations, especially these days, they know the value of it. They're automatically going to do that. They're going to have you fill out a profile with your link and they're going to do it for you. But those that don't, it really is a matter of reaching out and asking, please, can you put the link there? And sometimes it's up to that person or that organization whether they're going to do it or not. So it can be a little bit tedious, but it's valuable to find those and get those set up. But yeah, because it's their site, they actually have to provide the link to you. You can't just do it. So that's one of the hard parts of it.
Okay. And then is there a site that displays Google categories?
That's a good, so there is, I'm trying to think if that's paid or not. Let me look that up and I'll send it to you. There's I believe her name is Joyanne Hawkins, and she has a book and she used to update it all the time if the categories changed, but it may be a paid thing that you have to pay for. But I'll check and I'll send to you, and we can share it with the group if we can find a thing that's regularly updated. I think Google tends to get behind on some of these things, so sometimes they just stop providing updated information, and it's a little bit aged. But I'll see if we can find something.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And the best way to really know is to just, when you set it up, your category, you can type things in and it automatically searches for relevant things as you're doing it. So it's not like you need to go individually through all the things and try to find it. You can just type stuff in and you'll see it pop up and sort of do the work for you. Okay, so we talked links. Now we're going to get into reviews and ratings a little bit. So because they're sort of their own entire, I'm going to do a time check here so we don't go over, but reviews for your SEO. And I mentioned a few minutes ago how links have been sort of the #1 top ranking factor for a long time. I feel, and I've been saying this for a few years now, that reviews will eventually pass them for being important. The trouble is, as we discussed before, everything that becomes important for SEO, entire industries pop up to cheat at them. And right now, there is a lot of cheating when it comes to reviews. And I'm sure you've all seen fake reviews and that kind of thing out there. And Google hasn't become confident enough in reviews to give them as much weight as I think they want to give them, just because there's so much fake out there. But you've seen over the last couple of years, they'll really penalize. If they find someone is cheating at reviews, they'll penalize them, and sometimes businesses will lose hundreds and hundreds of reviews all at once, or they'll just get rid of their whole Google My Business page. So fight the urge to cheat at it, and instead just bake it into your process. I always ask for reviews. If you're doing a good job, in general, you're gonna do better with score. People are so afraid of getting that 1-star review, but it's called review gating, and it's actually, Google says that that's cheating if you review gate. So if you're only asking the people you know are going to give you a 5-star review for reviews, that's review gating. And in general, from studies that have been done, if you ask everybody for a review, the average score only drops about 1/10 of a point from asking everybody for a review versus only review gating. And the number of reviews that come back is far more. And because of the weight with reviews, it's better to just keep asking. The possible loss of 1/10 of a point is matters far less than the number that are coming in, because everything matters. So it is helpful to have a review score over 4.3, but it's also really important to have more and more reviews. So what you lose by not asking everybody is hurting you more than that point. Now, keep in mind, everything is relative. So a restaurant is obviously going to have far more reviews than a divorce lawyer, but the reviews still matter. So asking everyone is still important. And also, there are important pieces of this, like frequency and recency, that come into play. So another reason to just ask everyone. For example, what I do is I ask for a review in my signature of my email, and just have a link that goes right to leave me a review. So I'm basically asking everyone I interact with to leave me a review. So and I recommend doing things like that, because then you'd be surprised how many they'll pop up. And don't be afraid of a 1-star. 1-stars happen every once in a while. A lot of times, as we all know, you get these crazy people or whatever that leave this horrible story. But 1-stars also can help show customers that you're real. The other red flag of being fake and not real reviews is if you have 140 reviews and they're all 5-star. That's a big red flag to Google, but it also to humans in general. We're starting to get smart about that. And there have been studies that actually showed that the hotspot is sort of like a 4.3 to a 4.8 score overall. And that once you get over 4.8, you actually perform worse, because people start to think of it as fake. Not to make you want to go out and get negative reviews, but just realize that when a negative review comes in, it's not the end of the world. Now, what you should do though with reviews is respond to them, and don't get in an argument with anyone. Just be pleasant and just show that you're sane and you're just trying to help give people a good experience. Things like, sorry you had an unpleasant experience, we strive to do our best, things like that. Always respond to reviews, thank people that leave you a good one, and apologize if someone had a bad experience. The people that are sort of crazy with their 1-stars are going to show themselves that way. And a lot of times people reading those reviews understand that and say, okay, they dealt with them in a respectful way, a professional manner. And if you just keep asking for more, you're going to get those positive reviews that'll bury the negative ones anyway. So then lastly, and this is really, really important, even more than ever, is Google trusts what people say about your business a lot more than what you say about your business. So the words that are inside your reviews are really important. And just some examples here. So there's 2 examples here, and one is I'm a runner, and I went to run a race in Arkansas, and I needed to have my carb load the night before. And so the town was called Gamaliel, Arkansas, and I searched for pasta in Gamaliel, Arkansas. There is no business category pasta. The only business categories are for the restaurants are Italian, pizza, as you can see here. The categories are listed, Italian, pizza. But because I was searching for pasta, where did Google look for? They looked for what people had left reviews about that used the word pasta. And this is becoming more and more important. And it's a great way, especially for the very specific things that you offer. If they start showing up in reviews, then Google gives your business relevance to what these people are saying. So another example here, because of it's starting to get a little bit nicer out, is I did an outdoor dining near me search. And again, they searched for, or what popped up here is reviews that actually mentioned that there's outdoor patio, outdoor seating involved at the restaurant. There's no outdoor restaurant category, but it allowed them to pop up. And these are things people are searching more and more for. And this is how you sort of get in that door. So you ask, well, how do I make sure that people use those words in their reviews? Well, you can't make them because these are their words, but you can ask for a detailed review. So I tell people, don't just say, can you leave me a review? Say, can you leave us a detailed review of our service? Or tell us what you like about our service, or things like that. Because I say a 4-star review that goes into detail about what you did can be even better than a 5-star review that doesn't have any words with it. So just want to underline that more and more. Ask for detailed reviews. The quantity of native Google reviews with text is one of the higher ranking factors. So having text and not just a blank review is big. So just ask everyone for specific long, detailed reviews and bake that into your process, and it's going to become more and more important over time. I'll pause real quick
Yeah,
for review.
question on that. We don't have any questions, but actually I have a question.
Okay.
So I had a review request come from somebody. It was actually a pest control service that I used, and they sent me a review request. And I like to do reviews because as a small business owner, I know that how important reviews are. So I think it's important to do them. But their request, which was a Google My Business review or a Google review, sent me to a form that actually had specific keywords in it. What services did you use us for? Did you use us for this service? Did you use us for this service? It was and I can't remember the name, but I actually made a note of it because I thought that would be great, because it linked you, it forced you, I'm guessing, to use those keywords that they're looking for to put in their reviews, so that when somebody searches, pest control Philadelphia or whatever it is, that they would, that would pop up. Do you know anything about those types of services or what they are?
There are a lot of review management services, and there's sort of gray lines that can get you in trouble. So if you do, it sort of depends on how their process worked, because they can't put the words in your review. But if they were just making that top of mind so that when you wrote your wording, you used it, that's fine. And they're welcome to ask which service you did so that they understand to better their business. Because reviews are also, it's not just about a ranking factor, it's also your customers telling you what you do well and what you don't do well so you can work on it. So that's great for them. But if they actually put words in your reviews, that can get them in trouble. So it's a fine line, and these review management tools can be great because they help you walk through the process, but you just have to be, there was a company a couple of years ago that would automatically fill out 5 stars. And then you would actually have to change it, and they got in a lot of trouble so you can try to hand feed them to some point, but there's a point where you can't actually fill out the review or use the wording.
Yeah, there was still like a free form block that for me to write my review, but it just asked a few guided questions, what service did you use, etc.
That's great then, because it makes you think a little bit more in depth about what you've done. So
and
yeah.
Just ask, can you briefly describe how you send a review request link out from the Google My Business page?
Okay, so if you've ever tried to copy the link, if you ever go to your Google My Business page and click review, and then try to copy that URL, it's crazy long, filled with all sorts of gibberish kind of stuff, and it looks ugly. So what you do is you can take that link and then shorten it or turn text into it in your email form or that kind of thing. There's a lot of URL shorteners out there like Bitly, and that makes it look a little bit nicer. But you just take that link, and what I try to do is take them right to that particular, so you click the link that says leave a review and it pops up and you just fill out that form. That's the way to get it with Google. Now, these review management tools, as Claire was talking about, that I use some, there's a bunch of them, will often give people, they'll have a form and then they'll give a few choices. So Google is of course better, but some people hate Google. So what we usually do is we'll list 2 or 3 places. So if it's not Google, if someone hates Google, then we'll send them to Bing or whatever it might be. But I would say if you're just trying to do it yourself with your own emails, use a URL shortener like a Bitly or something like that. Actually, one of the, you may have seen me reference it with the data that we've been looking at. There's a company called Whitespark, and they're out of Canada, but they have a cool tool where you put your business in there and it'll automatically generate a short URL that you can use to pull people to your Google My Business page.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So, okay, so that's just doing a quick time check. I think we're okay. So that's reviews. Definitely keep asking. It's huge. Go home, come up with a plan for making sure that you're asking for reviews. Now, lastly, we're going to just talk about content a little bit. So, and this is content related to both your Google My Business and your website. In the SEO world, they always say content is king. So having specific content related, and Google is scanning your whole website, your landing page, and your whole website for relevance to rank your Google My Business. So think about all the different services you have. You should have a page on your site for every service that you have. And even more, if anything is happening, Google is trending to more and more specific. So you may have what we call cornerstone content, which is your basic service, but then that service may have sub pages. And this page is sort of speaking to, this is part of a presentation where I really dig into content, but you may have a page about the delivery method. You may have a page for customer type. You may have one service, but there's sort of 4 or 5 different ways that it's used by different types of customers or different industries, that kind of thing, serving and have a page about each industry and how you serve them specifically. All of that helps because that's all information that Google can deem relevant to your business. And if it's connected to your Google My Business page, it helps them understand that these are the things that you offer. Now, the things that are most relevant are the actual landing page that is directly connected to your Google My Business. So it can be helped to list. Now, your homepage, if you link to your homepage, typically does have a general overview of all the things that you offer. But I've seen people get a boost if they were specifically only worried about one very specific part of their business. For example, a dentist that really is just pushing dental implants rather than family dentistry or some of those other things, and maybe links people directly to their implants page, and then all of a sudden they see their ranking for implant searches go up. Now, there's a second side to that, as they might go down in some of the other searches. But having that content on your page, remember content is king, and remember to provide all of that content for your users, because they're all different types of people. The first time they interact with your site, they may not ever see your about page. Sometimes people say, well, that's in my about page. Well, you need to tell them on all of your service pages why they should choose you, things like that. Now, all of that detailed information on your website, you should also put on your Google My Business. There's all sorts of information on that back end. You should fill up all of the information you possibly can, and you should go back regularly and make sure, because Google is constantly expanding Google My Business and offering new things. Make sure that you're filling out everything that's relevant to your business. As many different service types, products, your hours, all of that stuff is actually a ranking factor. So the completeness of your Google My Business, complete and verified GMB listing. So the completeness of your Google My Business listing is a big ranking factor. So get all of that stuff in there. We talked about pictures before. There have been studies that show that once you get over 10 images and then over 100 images on your Google My Business, it gives you a little boost in the ranking. So get pictures up there. It helps to have unique pictures, like simple pictures off of like an iStock photo are less valuable than actual pictures you take of your office, things like that. Those are more helpful. But get that stuff filled out. Fill out as much, like I said, feed the Google beast with as much content and information so Google understands what you're offering. It's really important for regular SEO and for Google My Business local search. And that, as we're getting close to the end here, I just wanted to really quickly touch on speed. There's a lot of news in the Google world because in May, Google's coming out with what's called a Core Web Vitals update. And this isn't necessarily about Google My Business, but I just wanted everyone to know about it because there's a lot of scare tactics going on out there. It is important to have a fast website. And I've done blog posts. You can check out my site on blog posts on how important this Core Web Vitals is. You know, if you go to your website and it takes 10 seconds to load a page, that you're probably losing business from that. But don't let people scare you into thinking you're losing your entire business after the Core Web Vitals update, because it's a small ranking factor. It does matter, but it's not the be all end all of the world. You should definitely have a mobile friendly website that can be read on phones and loads quickly. But do some testing and check and make sure. Sometimes we don't go and look at our own websites. But I did this as a warning because there's a lot of people that do scare tactic sales in the SEO world and get people to waste a lot of money on things that don't matter as much. And speed matters, but there are other ways to improve your rankings that might matter more. And that's actually, we'll go to questions, but remember, I'm your resource. The PDF is available at youcanbefound.com/presentations. You can keep up with search engine news and things like that on my website. That's all free to go there and learn. I try to take a lens with pointing at small businesses. So a lot of news comes out and you try to sort of sift through all of that and come up to the things that actually matter to small businesses. So check that out there. Definitely go check out this when SCORE releases the video, because then you can see it all in all of its glory. And of course, for my digital business card, you can text YCBF to the number there. And I'm happy to take questions, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to present to everyone today. So thanks very much again to SCORE, because it's a tremendous resource as people are getting started with their businesses, to understand not just the thing you love to do that you got in business for, but all the other aspects of it that make it so it's a feasible business.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And I'm sorry, I think that my dogs are about to start really barking, so I apologize in advance. Yep, I see someone walking past the window. But we do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One is, if the linked account is a Facebook page and not a website, does that impact your success with Google My Business?
Yes. Yeah. You typically are going to have it's tough as businesses are getting started. There's all these decisions you have to make on resources, and you definitely want to eventually have your own website, but I know when you're getting going, that can be an expense. So sometimes you need to start with just to have a representation. You can set up something on a Squarespace or a Wix or something, just so you have a placeholder. But a lot of people get a lot of business from Facebook. So it's okay to have that as a representation of your business, but as far as a ranking factor, you definitely would be more help with having your own business than sending people to a Facebook page as a landing page.
And then can you recommend a website builder that's sort of relevant to the same?
So I would recommend in the long term, but it takes a little bit more professional sort of knowledge and expertise, is for small businesses, WordPress. If you're e-commerce, things like Shopify and that kind of thing can work. There are a lot of cheaper options out there. Like I was just referring to Squarespace, Wix, Weebly. Those are all options that are cheaper. They don't tend to perform as well and don't tend to have as many. What WordPress has, they have things called plugins. So sometimes as technology advances and you want to do things to update your website, there'll be a plugin that you can just install and it fixes problems. Whereas Wix and Squarespace and Weebly and those don't have those quite as much. But if you're just getting started and your resources are lower, I would lean towards Squarespace. That has a little bit more flexibility, and you can always eventually, as the funds start coming in more, you can always upgrade to WordPress down the line and get a developer to switch things over.
And then we actually have two questions that are the same, which is, so if I have a virtual e-commerce business, or if I offer a service and I don't have a physical mailing address that shows up on a map, do I put my home address? Or what if I don't want to put my home address? How does that work?
Yeah, so we call those service area businesses, and they're frustrating. So Google is not great at, so what you can do is you can mark your business as they'll have a little box that says I service my customers at their location. And if you click that, it won't show your address. It'll view you as a service area business. The trouble with that is service area businesses don't tend to rank as well. Google their algorithm tends to favor actual addresses. But if you don't want your address to show up, that's how you do it. It tends to not rank quite as well. And they have acknowledged that and are working on making that better. But to let you know, if you're open to showing your address, I would show your address. But I understand people that don't want people showing up at their door.
I had you muted, sorry. And then someone's asking, Jess, can they hire your services? And so I'll let you answer that one.
Of course, yes, you're definitely, you can hire me at any time. I'm pretty flexible. The way our programs work is most of my clients have an ongoing monthly budget, and we work on their SEO all the time. And we're trying to constantly strengthen them. But we also have, I do Zoom coaching to try to help DIYers just understand where they should point their efforts if they want to do the work. And we do project stuff. So sometimes people come and just be like, please just get my website set up and aimed in the right direction so that we can go forward. So everything I do is custom to the situation. So some people like to do more DIY, so we build something toward that where we teach them, and others just say, please, you do everything. I just want to focus on what I do. And in those cases, we would build a plan where we do more of the work. But yeah, you can reach out to me anytime, and we're happy to set up a plan for you.
And then just back to the question about where's that box to check that shows I service at a client's address. Can you just show where that is?
Yeah, so it's in the info when you first set up a business. It should ask you in the early process as it's going through it. If you're doing a brand new business, I'm not sure if I can show you right. If you are already claiming a business that's already there, you need to go to info and edit the address. When you edit the address, there'll be a box in there that you can change. And it'll basically remove your address.
Great.
I mean, that Google doesn't care what I think, but what I think is you should be able to put your address in, have it hidden, but Google use that address as the factor of where you are. But
it's crazy because if you are a service-based business and you're doing services in people's in other people's locations, where you're located doesn't probably really matter.
Exactly. I mean, I get that if you're in Asbury Park, it's harder for you to get to Philadelphia than if you're in Philadelphia. Right. So I understand there is some weight to that, but at the same time, you should be able to decide whether you can do that or not. And if bad reviews say they never show up on time, then that sort of speaks to it.
That's true. That's true. A PO box address is accepted.
It is not officially. So they won't let you have a PO box. They will let you have. Now they may allow that if you're a service area business, since they don't care anymore. They used to let you put an address in for service, but then lately they've just not taken an address, so it doesn't necessarily matter. In those cases, they're probably going to do the PIN by phone. But technically, you're not supposed to have a PO box. So.
There are no other questions, so I'm just going to do a little bit of a quick spiel about SCORE again, and in case anybody has any questions before we sign off. But so thank you so much, Jeremy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
I know personally, I find the SEO thing overwhelming, to say the least. So it's really good to be able to get that sort of demystified a little bit.
My pleasure.
To those of you that have attended, thank you for attending. We have a number of webinars coming up over the next few months. We're scheduled webinars out through, I think, middle of June at the moment. So check our website, monmouth.score.org, to see if there's any webinars that you find of interest. Also, please share with any friends and colleagues that you may have. And we are always looking for mentors. So if you are interested in being a mentor, or if you know anybody who may be interested in being a mentor, or if you are looking for somebody to mentor you, please look at our website and you can submit your applications through there, monmouth.score.org. We are a national association, and we are powered and funded by the SBA, but we are run locally by volunteers. And so just know that these services are out there and they exist. We always say we're the best kept secret in Monmouth County. Okay, we had another couple of questions come in, so I'll just get to those quickly. My Google My Business listing looks different on my phone versus on my PC. Specifically, my cover photo is missing on my phone. How do I see what customers see?
Yeah, unfortunately, that can be one of those frustrating things you always need to keep an eye on, and even different phones can have different. It's one of the frustrating things for developers. Luckily, I'm not a developer, but yeah, they'll present things differently. So the only way to really see right now is to look at it on your phone or look at other people's phones and make adjustments based on that.
And then the last question that we'll take is, I have a house cleaning business and I only want to show up in my own town.
You can't necessarily limit for organic. Now for paid, you can choose exactly what towns you advertise. But for organic, once your information is out there, if you should have the strongest ranking in your own town. But as you get stronger, you may start showing up outside your town, and you may, if you don't want to service people outside that town, you may just need to specify that on your information. We only serve those in this particular town. That's usually a good problem to have, that you're ranking for too many things.
Great. All right. Well, thank you again so much for your presentation. Much appreciated. Anybody wants to relook at this webinar, it's on our YouTube channel, which is Monmouth Score. We will try to send out the link to the YouTube channel within a couple of days from this webinar as well. We'll just email it to everybody who attended. And on that note, I will say thank you again for everyone's time. Thank you, Jeremy, and we'll see you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye all. Thanks. Take care.